So I have my lessons that I've started planning out here, and I want to update my lesson content from last year. I have some notes about what worked and what I need to change. And here's my curriculum map that's pretty undeveloped. And so I would like to start this process by um, identifying learning targets that will help guide me towards incrementally addressing some of the big concepts that I need to hit in the first two units. So the first thing that I'm going to do is edit my subject in my curriculum map to verify which curriculum sets I'm using. So it looks like I have the College Board AP Computer Science standards here. I'm going to take a second to browse around to see if there's any others that I'd like in addition or instead. Oh, and I've found some repeats. Uh, so I don't know the differences between some of these other official Chalk.com um, AP Computer Science standards from the College Board. So I added all of them, and then I'm going to check right now to see which ones I'd like to keep. Meanwhile, I also found the high school technology standards from ODE, so I'll add those. So now that I'll save them, I'd like to go to the standards coverage here. Let me make this full screen here. And so looks like these two are largely the same, 380 standards. That's a little insane. Um, that's so I'm gonna take a minute to go through all of these. That's pretty wild. Whereas this one is only eight, so it's a little silly on the other direction. Yeah, this is use standard data structure. I mean, that's so broad. Design and analyze solutions to problems. Okay, okay, so that does me no good. And um, so I think I might just start looking through these to see if there's anything that I can pull from here. Uh, and I'll show you how I'm going to spring off of these into my learning targets in a second. Okay, so looking over these, they're just all over the place. They're mixed up and really not entirely. Some are too granular, some are too broad. It doesn't lay in a sequence of concepts that I can use as a guide at all. It's just a mix-match. But the ODE technology standards are fair enough, easy enough that I can use as a starting. I know what content I need to hit, so um, yeah, I'm going to cut all of them except for the ODE standards here. Now this is a big deal because it's going to remove all of the any association that I may have had. So if I link these standards in my unit maps, I'm cutting this link, and so that's a big deal. But I haven't created any. I haven't linked any in my units yet. Okay, so the first step I'm going to take in this process is to start writing out some of the big concepts that I need to hit my unit. And then from that listing, I'm going to start synthesizing it down because as you can see from here, my unit one, I can see how many days I'm going to be teaching my unit one. I'm going to expand this a little bit, but it's really just a handful of days. So I'm going to list out the concepts that I need to hit there and then look over what kind of assignments I had them doing. And so from those activities, I'll draw out learning targets that will be demonstrable, the concepts demonstrable from these activities, and making sure I include the big concepts that I need to hit in this unit. All right, I finally found a body of standards that I like. There's some stuff missing. I was about to go into the standards and upload my own, but fortunately I found one that's suitable. Um, and so I will just be using a bit of I'll stretch a few of the topics since I go into a little more depth on the fundamentals. I find if students really understand what is a computer with a little more detail than is required, there's a level of comfort going into some of the more abstract things, knowing uh, more, having a firmer grasp of the concrete stuff that's underpinning it all, I think helps. So I will now I link a couple of the basic standards that are applicable to my introductory topic, and I will now um, try writing down some learning targets that address some of this material. I can link it to either one of these, really. Ultimately, the learning target advances students' understanding to both of these concepts. So which one I link to is a little bit arbitrary. However, what is important is how I describe what's being done this lesson. Okay, so here's my first learning target. I can interpret logical expressions and complete a logic table. It is describing the action that will demonstrate their skill. They will be completing logic tables. And it also hits the language along Bloom's taxonomy that illustrates what level of comprehension I'm at, which is interpretation. Normally, you would start, especially the first learning target, you may start at a more literal level of comprehension, defining and sorting, which is a little bit more advanced. But it's still, you're trying to front load some definitions. With logic, the students know what true and false is, and so I can go right into a little bit more advanced applications. But I'll add that in, and so now that's my first learning target. I am just going to number them sequentially, so my next one is going to be 2, and throughout I'm just going to keep on counting up my learning targets. I don't know if there may be a smarter way of using this code, whatever, but maybe I might do APCS 1 and APCS 2. That way it's labeling my subject, but really I'm just going to do 1, 2 for now. And this would be an example of the more literal level. I can define the core statement needed, the core software needed in a Java development environment. And this is just how the language of Java runs. They don't really do too much. We'll maybe upgrade and update the Java development environment on their computers here in the lab, but really all I really need from them to do is be able to answer some definition questions. So it's very literal level. And so that's my second learning target. And trying to think if there's much more I need to go into. I could make converting numbers from base 10 into binary or hexadecimal is a discrete skill, so a learning target may be warranted here. But it is such a small and singular skill, I wonder if it should be included in a larger learning target. This is something that I'll have to discuss in my department. But what the heck, I'll add it in now. Okay, so I have my 3 essential learning targets that will describe the lesson goals of my first unit. And I think there's one more about class expectations that I really do need to have. It'll help. I mean, and it's more honest. I definitely do make that a goal of my first lesson. So I may just actually move this to a different learning target and then edit the first one, or maybe just change this number to, can I reorder them? These are all good questions. I don't know. Alright, I made one for class expectations, and if you unassign them and then reassign them, it orders them back in the order that you'd like. So now I can just see them all pretty in order. And now I have the learning targets done for my first unit. And so now it's on to the second unit, and we'll repeat this process. And these unit lesson goals haven't yet been discussed among my department. There is a lot of benefit that you can get when you have other professionals weighing in to try to make this as thoughtful and as accurate as possible. Now, I just wish I could take my my lessons, improve them, update the PowerPoints, and then add not just the PowerPoints to here, but also the bundle of lessons. Add that as a resource. I think that would be helpful, but can't yet do that. I'm sure that's something that they're working on. But I hope this helps. If you have any questions, just let me know.